speaking of Ivanka Trump, Ivanka is a mother of 3 kids, and she has influence. I'm sure she said, listen, this is horrible stuff. My father will act in times like that. Did Ivanka Trump play a role in President Trump deciding to strike Syria, and if so, what was that role?
Well, the president, I think we released last Friday a very comprehensive TikTok of, when the president was informed by his national security team and how his thinking evolved. 10:30 last Tuesday, his national security team was giving him his presidential daily briefing. They went over what had gone on in Syria in detail. He began to ask a series of questions. They came back to him later that day. There was a deputy principals meeting later on Tuesday. On Wednesday, there was a principals meeting. They continued to bring back with him a series of questions and responses to his thing, and it is evolving. His decision-making process continued aboard Air Force One on the way down to Florida. 4 o'clock when he arrived in Mar-a-Lago, he had a national security team meeting both in Mar-a-Lago and secure VTC back to different elements that were gathered in secure locations. That's when he gave the order. That being said, there's no question that Ivanka and others weighed into him, as it was asked earlier, Hallie asked it, that when he himself saw images, he was very, very moved. And I think Ivanka and others, frankly, I don't think that there's many humans that came into contact with the president during that window of time that said, did you see those images on television? So I don't, I think there was a widespread acknowledgement that the images and the actions that have been taken were horrific and required action.
And just to be clear, she was among those who supported taking action.
I have not asked her what her person, but I think, and again, I saw the reports that Eric gave, but again, I don't think Ivanka stands any different than anyone else when it comes to the response that we got.
Do you know if they discussed the attack?
I don't.
She responded and gave her personal reaction to it?
I don't know, but again, I don't think it's that dissimilar to what any human being probably would have asked.
Just a couple of others. He also said if there was anything that the strike on Syria did, it was to validate the fact that there is no Russia tie, which raises the question that there was some type of political component to this. Can you respond to that?
Well, in the sense that I guess my point, or I think his point would be, after 80 plus days of constantly being asked what the involvement is, I think clearly with us acting, not having a conversation with Moscow in the political sense. Prior to that, I think it pretty is, for all of the discussion about how many ties and back channels and this and that, it was a pretty clear show of resolve and force that the United States was acting and not with anyone else's.
He wasn't suggesting that was a factor in the decision.
No, I think but I think that, respectfully, I mean, almost every single day we've been asked about these so-called ties and back channels and whatever, and I think there's an acknowledgement at some point that if that was true, you would have seen some kind of action that clearly didn't happen.